In what movie did you like the bad guy more than the good guy? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Emperor's New Groove. Isma and Kronk. They are entertaining to watch until today. Iceman in Top Gun. He was the only pilot that actually obeyed the rules, was a skilled flyer, never killed anybody in the entire movie, correctly identified all of Maverick's faults. I hate that I watched that movie as a child and never felt empathy for Tom Cruise's character. Maverick was an asshole that should have been grounded after his very first flyby. Anytime Alan Rickman played the bad guy, but particularly Hans Gruber in Die Hard and the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood. Not that I wanted the bad guys to win in those movies, but his acting was many times more enjoyable than anyone else's. Meryl Streep's character in The Devil Wears Prada, so much more interesting than Anne Hathaway's character. Probably unpopular, but Knives Out. Chris Evans was so funny just telling people to eat shit. It was amazing. I like bad guys who have legit reasons. Clue from Tron Legacy was instructed to make the perfect system, but he took it a little too seriously. He was just doing his job to make it a perfect world. HAL 9000 from 2001 Space Odyssey is another good one. He wasn't evil, he was just given conflicting programming. At some point in time, I started hating on Jerry. I just wanted Tom to kick his ass, at least once. Just a bit of social justice. I felt the same way about Roadrunner. Is that strange? Hades in Disney's Hercules. The Joker in the 1989 Batman, played by Jack Nicholson. He was really fantastic. He was funny, liked Prince's music, was a snazzy dresser, and had a major thing for Kim Basinger. What's not to like? I think I was 12 the first time I saw it, and I legitimately cried when he died. I'm gonna break the rules of the question and say Breaking Bad. Gus Fring was just so interesting to watch in every scene he was in. I saw Titanic in theaters as a preteen with my friends. We all walked out swooning over how handsome he was, and I said, "And that gorgeous black hair." They stared at me like I was an animal. I eventually fell for Leo as an actor, but maintain that Billy Zane was gorgeous in that movie. X-Men. Magneto was right. Alan Rickman is just about any villain, but especially in Robin Hood, because I have an inexplicable and unreasonable level of hate for Kevin Costner. Alan Rickman in Die Hard. James Marsden and Ryan Gosling in The Notebook. Darth Vader in the Star Wars trilogy. Law-abiding citizen. His reasons for doing what he was made sense. Agent Smith in The Matrix. He was a badass. High School Musical. Sharpay worked so hard in theater and Gabriella and Troy just got it handed to them. Wreck-It Ralph. You're a bad guy, but that doesn't mean you're a bad guy. Tywin Lannister. I know, it's not a movie, but Tywin Lannister. Mrs. Doubtfire makes for an uncomfortable watch these days. The film sets up Sally Field's mother character as the enemy. She works, which means she is subtly deemed neglectful, and she is portrayed as having no sense of humor, being angry at her husband's inability to keep a job for long and childish pranks, such as the final straw of destroying the house by filling it with the zoo animals. Watch it nowadays and she's entirely reasonable. She keeps the family in comfort with a career she works hard at, allowing him a creative role which pays less, especially as he loses jobs through his attitude, but is his passion. Her husband's a liability and treats the kids as friends, not children. He convinces them their boring mother is manipulative when she advises him to get a job and tidy his post-split home. His refusal to take any of her advice in learning to parent and clean leads to him adopting the persona in which he does finally learn these things, which I suppose is the lesson of the film, but the lengths he goes to avoid just taking her simple advice and acting like an adult in his own skin come across as creepy and weird. I suspect the 90s message was that she should just give up work and cook meals while he got to keep playing around. My kids were shocked that he attempted to kill the mother's new boyfriend via a peanut allergy. They also found his unpredictable nature and nasty comments towards the children's mother alarming, and we spent more time talking about that than about any comedy moments. They cringed as he lied to the children and found the whole idea uncomfortable. They had a lot of questions about the nature of divorce. Not that they feared it, but that they could see it was the only solution. They both disliked the notion, as kids will, but saw its necessity. It was interesting, really. I remember enjoying the film as a kid and thought they'd take it at face value. But perhaps things are just different nowadays and that sort of behavior from adults is seen alarming. However, It could simply be that it's a more intelligent film than I gave it credit for, that it really is a family in crisis with a man only finally forced to grow up in the film's final minutes. Loki and Thor, my current best friend and I bonded over this. Training Day. The first Terminator. The musical Rent. Benjamin is supposed to be the bad guy, but is the only one who consistently does good. His sins include letting his friends stay without paying rent in a New York apartment for a long time, trying to renovate the neighborhood, not getting hurt or angry when his friends won't leave the apartment for said renovation, nor pay a single dollar in rent, paying for the funeral of the guy who killed a dog because it was noisy and was basically a huge jerk. Meanwhile, the rest of the cast whine, bitch, ego trip, freeload, cheat on their so's, because that's totally fine when you're as hot as Maureen, shoot up, mope, and in general act like huge a-holes throughout the story. Only other exception is Joanna, who acts as a normal decent person, but is portrayed as being possessive, because she's not totally comfortable with her so openly flirting with, jumping everything with a pulse. Beetlejuice. Not a movie, but Lorne Malvo in Fargo. Thor. I liked Loki way more than Thor. I wanted Christian Bale's character to lose in the movie Prestige, because it was kinda his fault. The government in the X-Men movies. They had a pretty good point. I mean, Magneto can turn city streets into a game of real-life bumper cars. Mystique can turn into the president to the extent that no one will know the difference. Professor X can touch his temple and get nuclear launch codes. Wanting a registration system isn't the most awful idea. I always felt kind of sorry for the orcs in Lord of the Rings. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of a whole species being inherently evil. It would have been cool to see at least a few get redeemed. Plus their look was metal as frick. The Deputed. Princess and the Frog. The Karate Kid. Cobra Kai all the way. Even though he is the good guy by the end, and is the protagonist the whole movie, I think Cusco from Emperor's New Groove still counts. Inglourious Bastards. Phantom of the Opera. Not a movie, but Negan from The Walking Dead. Hated him for killing Glenn and Abraham, but goddamn it was hard to hate him later on. The Lost Boys. Although technically not the bad guy, a lot of people fall for the propaganda and say Vader is the bad guy. Bane more than Batman. Loki and Thor. Killmonger in Black Panther. I'm sorry, but T'Challa is boring as frick. Killmonger was a million more times interesting and the movie should have been about him. Avatar. The Blue People, not the collective fever dream of Reddit that probably never happened. Jake was such a boring character, as with the Na'vi, but the Colonel, fricka didn't let being on fire stop him from trying to tame the planet. It took a literal Deus Ex Machina to stop him, if we can count the World Tree as a god. Civilizations have worshipped less powerful creatures, seems appropriate, nearly conquered a planet with mining equipment security rifles. The Joker in The Dark Knight. Okay, this may sound edgy at first, but listen. In Batman Begins, we get shown Gotham as a city dominated by organized crime and with corrupt police. In The Dark Knight, this may have cooled down a bit, but by far not completely. There are basically only two lawyers to trust, and all the organized crime still works, just in daylight. Then the Joker steps in. At first he does a heist, killing all the people who partook and getting some money. Then, he does what not even Batman could do. He walks into the meeting of all the bosses of organized crime, kills one of them and negotiates half their money out of them for doing something he doesn't do at all. Only days after this, the organized crime in Gotham breaks into shambles. I'm not saying he's the good guy, but I'm saying that he did as much for Gotham as Batman did. Also, how could you not love Heath Ledger? I don't know if I liked him more than the good guy, but Andrew Scott's Moriarty as BBC's Sherlock is amazing. He's crazy and he knows it and embraces it. He creates chaos for fun and it's amazing to watch him taunt Sherlock. I was so upset when he died. The McPoyles in Always Sunny hostage episode. Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent is a great character. Series. King Eve. She's just an absolute badass. Spider-Man Homecoming. Does it count if I say that the brothers in Boondock Saints are the bad guys? Technically the good guy is Dafoe, because he is the one trying to stop the mass murders. It's just that the bad guys of this movie are even worse, but the brother are killing hella people. No Country for Old Men. Javier Bardem was the best bad guy I ever saw. To be honest, I think there is anyone there that can perceive as a whole good. One of the best movies I ever saw. Not a movie, but a sitcom. Dwight was not your typical villain per se, he was just an anti-hero, but Jim, the Romeo, was downright mean and a bully. Megamind. War of the Worlds. The acting was so bad that within 20 minutes I found myself hoping the aliens would wipe out the human race, or at least Tom Cruise. Amy Dunn from Gone Girl. Yeah, she was clearly insane, but her husband, can't remember his name, was a douchebag in a much more realistic way. Not many people know someone of her caliber of crazy, but we pretty much all know a cheating arsehole like him, and somehow that makes him way more hateable. She's also just a far more interesting and memorable character, so that helps. Sonic. Jim Carrey as Robotnik owns my soul. Avengers. Infinity War. Hannibal Lecter. Silence of the Lambs. Anton Chigurh. No Country for Old Men. The Joker. The Dark Knight. Norman Bates. Psycho. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more r/AskReddit content. Be sure to check out our playlist, link in the description below.